You watched it?
John Curlin? Yeah.
Consider. I know your number.
Like before we started.
Okay, you don't have to ask if anybody else is.
Yeah.
We're at 7:01. I'll call this meeting of June 3rd, Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just remind people that this is being televised live on Chelmsford Cable. So we'll start with public service announcements. So the first one is Chelmsford Farmers Market. Do we have anybody here? Yes. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Claudia DeLucia. I'm one of the volunteers for the Chelmsford Farmers Market. Says Joanna Shaw. She's much more talented than I am, so I won't take credit for being her. So the Farmers Market starts not this weekend, the weekend after, June 15th on Saturday. It's every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have 3 produce vendors this year, which is wonderful. We had 2 last year and 1 had to leave halfway through, so we're really delighted to have doubled our produce vendors. We are going to have Zippy's Coffee and several bakeries, homemade bakeries, and we're going to have a little cafe this year, so if you normally go out for coffee and a nosh on Saturday morning, you can do it at the market now and have your coffee and a little something. We'll have tables and chairs under a tent, so that will be nice. We will have up to 17 vendors on any given day. Like last year, we'll have child's activity every Saturday. We still desperately need volunteers, so if anyone is interested, there's only 4 of us, and we're there every single Saturday, and we set up at 8:30 and we finish at 3, so it's a good 6 hours, 6.5 hours. If anybody is interested to come and man the table, we would love to have you for any hours at all. We're hoping to get a situation where we would have people set up for 3 hours, and then people would close and they'd be there for 3 hours. So we'd have 2 shifts. So if anyone's interested, our website is chelmsfordfarmersmarket.org. I have business cards here with phone numbers and the websites if anyone's interested. And that's it. We're really looking forward to it. If you don't have a dog and you need a puppy fix, you need to volunteer, because everybody brings their dog and you are smothered in puppy love for 6 hours. It's wonderful. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look. Next, we have the Arts and Technology Education Fund. Evelyn?
Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk just a little bit briefly about Arts Technology Education Fund, since I was unable to make the January meeting when I normally do that. So bear with me for just a few minutes, because I don't know if anybody at home that's listening going, what is the Arts and Technology Education Fund? So it was established in 1996. George Ripson and myself came before a board, not you, but a Board of Selectmen board, and you put a warrant on the article, and it was approved through a bylaw change in 1996, and we made our first award in 1997. And so we've been making awards ever since. And if anybody wants to know, how do we get the funding for the awards, it was through a tax checkoff on your real estate taxes or your excise tax bills. Or you can just make donations. You make the check payable to the town of Chelmsford, and you put a little notation on the bottom that says it's for the Arts and Technology Education Fund. And then we take that money. We don't know who gives, so I also would take this opportunity of thanking any of the taxpayers or anybody that has donated. To that, whatever gift you could give, even if you've rounded up and it's under $1 on your tax bill or excise tax bill, anything, it all adds up. We would like to be able to get more funding, and we've come up with some other ideas in the past, and we're looking for new ideas for the future. The purpose of the Arts and Technology Education Fund is to provide supplemental funding for the staff of the Chelmsford Public Schools. It's for a program, equipment, event, or supplies, and it is not part of the school department budget. It can't be something that was canceled from the budget. It can't be a pilot program, and we do not fund any kind of salary or stipends for any of the staff in which to incorporate anything that of the ideas that they would have. Anything that they may purchase becomes the property of the Chelmsford Public Schools because it's taxpayer money that has purchased it, and so we want the school to be able to use it again if indeed that's something that they can do more than one time. The application process starts on January 1st every year, and the application deadline is March 31st every year. So that consistency, application goes out through the Chelmsford Public Schools to the staff, and they see that and they respond accordingly to us. We had 9 applications this year, and we're making 6 awards tonight. We have certain criteria that we follow within the committee, and we've done that for quite a number of years. The committee that does the screening process is made up of 8 individuals. It is a 9-member committee, but we have one person that has resigned. That's Angelo Taranto and Hannah Barber. We have Beverly Barrett, Kirk Marshall, Jeff Porzio, Carrie Mike Meikle, and the superintendent of schools, or his or her designee. Superintendent of schools is always on the committee. The others may change depending upon who wants to remain as a member of the committee. One of the ways also that we have been creative with getting funding is that there is a program that parents may donate to the Arts and Technology Education Fund for a teacher. So instead of buying a teacher gift, because there are limitations on that, then they can make a donation when we get that. Then this year Hannah is taking care of making sure that thank you notes go out to the parents and notifications go out to the teachers that whatever student that they had, their parent made a donation for them to this particular fund. So what I'd like to do is start with the awards, unless anybody has any questions about the ATEF. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the first person, I hope this doesn't fall on the floor. Better. Is David Steves, that we gave a donation for $750 for his proposal, Arduino microcontrollers in engineering class, and that's for Chelmsford High School. So if you would like to come up, Dave. I'm going to do this. Hannah's going to take some pictures. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
The second award is for $300 for game group building social skills through cooperative play, and that was done collaboratively between 2 of the staff members. Maura Cole and Holly Matsken-Durkin is here this evening to receive the award. Holly? Congratulations. There was also collaborative work between Kathy Sementelli and Catherine Roshwarg. Some of the names are always challenging to pronounce. I apologize. And that was for $500. Catherine's here this evening, and this was for scanning pens to benefit the students at McCarthy Middle School. Congratulations. So I don't have my glasses on to see if everybody's here, but we started to also fund some of the programs in the CHIPS preschool, because that's also the staff of the Chelmsford Public Schools. We made an award to Mary Ellen Forty for $472.48 for school home storytelling kits. But I don't, oh, she is here. Sorry about that. Congratulations. I don't have the right glasses on. Thank you. We have an award for $719.80 to Jessica Valentino for Strum That Ukulele for Harrington Elementary School. My oldest grandson was doing the moving up for the 4th grade, and she was at Harrington where we attended the program on Friday night and actually saw her in action. So we'd like to call her up.
And my students were so excited at receiving this that they insisted on me bringing a thank you card that they enrolled all of the incoming 4th grade staff. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one is for Allison Lacasse and Sean Wright for the McCarthy Jazz Ensemble collaboration with Soul City for $750. And Allison said that she was going to be in Normandy or dealing with the D-Day celebrations, and I didn't see that Sean, or maybe he didn't get the message that he was going to be here this evening. But in conclusion, I'd like to make sure that you understand that when we have our interview process and we see the creativity of the teachers, that the excitement that they have is very contagious. And you sit there going, we want more money so we can give out more grants. And it's very, very satisfying for us to be able to actually find money to go back into the hands of our staff members that will deal directly with our students. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
And with that, that brings us to open session. Is there anybody that would like to address the board tonight? Wait till everybody moves.
Keep going.
Nobody wants to address the board, okay. Pat, committee vacancies?
Okay, as of today, the following committee vacancies exist. There's one opening on the Arts and Technology Education Fund, and one that we just heard about, so if you're interested in joining that committee, that's a good time to start right now. 2 openings on the CCA Advisory Committee, 4 openings on the Civic Committee, 1 opening on the Community Action Program Committee, 2 openings, 2 associate member position openings on the Council on Aging. Cultural Council can have up to 21 members, and they need a few more to reach that number. 2 openings on the Energy Conservation Committee, 3 openings on the Holiday Decorating Committee, 2 on the Middlesex Canal Commission. The Parade Committee welcomes all applicants. There's 1 opening on the Personnel Board, 5 openings on the Public Celebrations Committee, 1 opening on the Roberts Field Advisory Committee, and 3 openings on the Sign Advisory Committee, and 2 openings on the Skate Park Committee. If you're interested in applying for any of these committees or boards, you can fill out an application online on the town's website or at the town manager's office.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Public hearing, we have a continuation for the all-alcohol beverage restaurant license for Spicy Touch.
Hi, if it pleases the board, my name is Arthur Perlman. I appeared before you 2 weeks ago, made a presentation, and you stated that you wanted to have a second time available for people who may have comments. So I'm here to address those.
Okay. Is there anybody that'd like to speak? And we have a motion?
I make a motion to close the public hearing for the all-alcohol beverages license for Spicy Touch.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion that we grant the all-alcohol beverage restaurant license to Spicy Touch at 313 Littleton Road.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. All right, that brings us to licenses. So we have a one-day alcohol license for Team Donica for One Mission Buzz Off for childhood cancer. Is there anybody here to speak on that?
This is the annual
Event at the
thing
Legion.
at the
Yep.
Legion
Yep.
every year, so.
Yep.
Did you close that street off?
Willis Drive.
Yes. And I don't believe they've had any issues with that in the
No, it was
past.
very successful.
So I'll make a motion that we grant a one-day all-alcohol license to Team Danica for the One Mission Buzz-Off to be held at the American Legion on June 15th.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, members of the public, I'm pleased to introduce to you this evening the town's newest employee, our Community Services Coordinator, who will begin employment on just after the 4th of July, the Monday after the 4th. This position, as you know, was included in the funding at the spring annual town meeting. I assembled a selection committee of Chief Spinney, Health Director Sue Rosa, Human Resources Director Jean Parziali, and myself. We had a deep applicant pool. We interviewed a half dozen people, and at the end of that process, there was unanimity amongst the committee for the selection of Jennifer Melanson to serve in this position. Jen has over 20 years of experience in human services and healthcare. She's currently employed as a case manager for Community Health Link of Leominster. Obviously has significant background with behavioral health issues, including mental illness and addiction. And I'd like to call upon Jennifer to come up to the podium this evening, introduce herself, and just give us a little bit of introduction.
Hi, my name's Jen. I'm happy to be here. I want to thank Paul and also the rest of the selection committee for giving me this opportunity. I'm really excited at the chance to be able to work with the community here in Chelmsford, get to know the needs of the community, and do the best that I can to work for them. I have particular interest in advocacy with patients' rights. I also have research interest in mental health issues. So I'm hoping that between my work experience and also the fact that I'm studying for a MSW at Regis College, that will bring some good experience to the table. But really what I'm looking most forward to is just getting to know everybody here in Chelmsford and finding out what the needs of the community are and doing my best to meet those needs. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, Paul, Section 8, or Part 8 here.
Yeah, the chair had asked me to place an item on the agenda regarding the easement for the Tobin Avenue property. We have in our packets, and you have displayed here this evening, a memorandum from Town Council Paul Haverty that sort of lays out the process for the granting of, in this case, a non-exclusive easement. It is basically almost it's a procurement process or a disposition process, and so it's quite elaborative and it will take a little bit of time. But the first step of that initiative is for the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the town to declare that property available for the granting of the easement. Again, a non-exclusive easement in this case. Once that is done, we'll then go through the remaining steps as enumerated by Town Council, which is we'll work to get a determination of the value of the parcel. We'll then issue a solicit of the proposals for the property. That'll be advertised. It has to go in the newspaper twice in successive weeks, at least 2 weeks prior to the date for opening of the proposals, in the Central Register as well, which is the Commonwealth's item, because again, it's an interest in land. After the RFP is distributed and bids proposals are open, then
it would then be brought before this board for approval, and then we then have to disclose the awards to the central register, and then execute the easement documents, and then that all gets filed at the Registry of Deeds, and then we obviously hang on to those documents process. So tonight is sort of the first step in this process. Basically, I'll assign this, for the board's knowledge, assign this to Michael to coordinate with town council to go through the RFP process and develop that documents, and then bring this back. So if we are in June, we expect that certainly that would be completed probably in an August timeframe, just given the requirements for time and advertising and so forth. So that's how we'll go through. I think the thing to point out to the board is it's a non-exclusive easement, and we'll work with council in terms of the process and so forth. And as council noted in his memo, you're not limited to selecting a single bidder. So if you had multiple people who wanted to have non-exclusive rights to cross that easement, I guess the board could entertain that. But so anyway, that's how the process is. And again, the first action is for the board to formally vote this evening to declare the Tobin parcel as surplus, and then we'll initiate the remaining steps in this process.
Before we vote that, just as questions about the process. So let's say only one person shows up, bids in the easement, and they vote 25,000.
And it's below 25,000?
Let's say it's 35,000 or 40,000, whatever.
But you're also constrained by the town meeting vote, too. I
Which
believe.
says 50, right?
Right, so you can't overrule that.
So any bid that's under 50,
Would have to be rejected. That would be in the RFP. It would note down that there was a town meeting vote to authorize this and to set a minimum floor of 50,000.
right,
And therefore you couldn't override that town meeting vote.
okay. And then. would
But
it be
this is
all
the
right
only
to-
way we can do this.
That's why we turned to town council, for guidance on how to do this. He's sort of been with us the whole length of the way thus far.
Out of courtesy, can we make sure that if there are no other questions,
Sure.
on Billy? I mean,
Sure, if there are any questions, they're welcome to contact the
Bill,
office, Will.
all right.
Yeah, or I know Bill has dealt with Paul Haverty in the past. He's welcome to continue to do so through this process.
Okay.
I mean, nobody else would have an interest in this. I mean, I understand you have to go through the procedure,
Right.
so.
But I think Ken's asking, are there any comments tonight?
Any concerns or?
Did you want to say anything, Bill? Or?
Well, I mean, we have to start it one way regardless.
Yeah.
So,
But just to be clear, George, like, even if 5 people showed up and they said, I'm interested in this easement, and they all bid 50 grand, we can,
we could accept them
all
all.
50,
Sure.
or all 5 for 50, yeah.
So we have to declare this property as surplus? Does that
Right.
mean that we would never have any use for it?
Right, that's available for the granting of a non-exclusive easement. Yeah. You have to take that vote.
Didn't we already do that when we gave the first one?
I don't know. I don't have the paperwork on that vote. Again, council.
Wouldn't we have had to?
I don't know which board did that, what they did at that time. Again, I turned to council on this to make sure what we did was accurate and complete. I didn't research what was done in the past. I assume he may have looked at it when he examined the parcels early on, but I didn't specifically ask that question.
So I do have a question. So if someone comes forward and bids and they're the only one and they purchase it for 50, other people will still be able to use it. Like they can't erect a fence and just be like, this is my domain, right? Like it's.
Well, you have the other use of you already have an existing
Yeah, it's
use
already
across
used
there, so
on
you
it,
can't
so-
preclude that.
So it can't.
Right,
All right.
right.
I can't remember specifically whether we took it in tax title, but I thought the developer of the property took an easement and then gave that portion of the town, whether we acquired it through tax title or they gave it to us outright. But I think
I
that's
see,
how
I
the
see.
easement
So-
came first.
The town took it, or however we acquired it, already had the easement
I
on it.
believe that was the case, if memory serves me correct.
The question that I have is, does anybody have a copy of the warrant article that was before town meeting? Specifically what it stated?
I don't have it in front of me. What town meeting does is authorize. It doesn't grant. It just
So it would be
authorizes the
it would be in the
selectmen to grant
record
an easement.
of
Okay.
whatever, was there. It would be online.
Yep. Just wanted to see if you had it tonight.
We could look
I
at it.
appreciate it, thank you.
You ready for motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that this board declare the property, I don't have a legal,
The town property off of Tobin
Okay,
Avenue for disposition. It's the only one we have.
okay, the town property off of Tobin Avenue be made available for disposition as it is surplus, and continue the process to declare an easement or,
In accordance with the vote at the February 4th, 2019 special town meeting.
okay, that's my motion.
That defines it.
I'll second all of that motion.
But then it defines the parcel and defines the vote, the authorization. Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. All right, so reports and presentations, we have Steve Youngling.
Hi, good evening. Stephen Young, Assistant Director of Public Works. Here tonight in regards to the order of taking for the easements necessary for the Billerica Road and Riverneck Road intersection reconstruction project. As I'm sure you saw in your packet, there's a number of easements. Some have been graciously donated to the town. Others, it's quite a process to go through appraisals and then review appraisals and speaking to the property owners and back and forth and all that. After all those meetings, 7 of them chose to accept the offer based on the appraisal, as you can see in the document, the order of taking document. So here tonight, if you remember, fall town meeting authorized the selectmen to acquire these easements by a whole list of means. So I'm here tonight asking for your endorsement on these documents, and I will happily answer any questions.
Is there anybody that declined?
No, there was one resident that I went to their house 3 or 4 times and just could not get a hold of it, and of course it's the one that's only $250. But everybody else I spoke to, met on their property, went through the plans, explained the process, you know, gave them, there's a community compliance officer at Mass DOT that's been helping through the project that was also available for questions. So, I mean, that's basically it.
Okay, so you need a vote on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the orders of taking for easements for the Billerica Road and Riverneck Road reconstruction project as presented.
A second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Now we're on to the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee presentation. Evan?
Good evening. Evan Belansky, Director of Community Development. So over the last couple of years, you've been hearing about wayfinding signage as it pertains to the center village. That dates back a couple years ago. And as you may recall, those signs are in the process of being installed. However, about a year ago, I applied for a Massachusetts Downtown Initiative grant back in March, April of 2018. We were awarded $15,000 through the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative grant. That process began in July of 2018. The North Village Strategic Planning Committee has been meeting relatively monthly since that time, and most recently met in May of last month. So with me tonight is Joe Tierney he's the chair of the North Village Committee. Mark Favorman is the state's consultant for all of these wayfinding state grant programs and initiatives. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, again, somewhat similar to the MVP process last month, is many state grants require a presentation to the chief elected board, being the Select Board. What is being asked of you tonight is to endorse the concept. The concept being the image and kind of the theme of the wayfinding signage. You are not being asked to vote on any endorsement related to locations or final language. That work will continue to be done by the committee, and Mr. Favorman will finalize some plans to be submitted to the state. From here, what will happen is once the committee finalizes the locations and the final text of those signs, we'll likely pursue funding for fabrication and installation. That very likely may be a funding request at fall town meeting. If you recall, the Center Village fabrication was about $25,000. So we estimate that this effort will be a similar funding request. And then we would pursue installation probably likely a year from now, spring of 2020. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Mark for a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then Joe is available to answer any committee questions.
Good evening, everybody. Evan was being a little humble. This is a very competitive grant for the state, and it is the largest area of applications. So to win one of these grants is quite good. So my firm, we're located in Boston. We go all over the state working with communities, and in this particular case, we're working with a subsection of a community, a neighborhood. So can we have the next slide, please? So the idea of this is not just wayfinding and signage, but it's also to create a brand or a image, an image that relates strongly to the personality and character, the community character. And it also is underscored by the history and geography and the social aspects of the community as well. So we start off by asking questions of the committee, and we try to answer them. Where is Vinyl Square? Where's North Chelmsford? For those who don't live there, how do we figure out where it is and what it is the second thing. So what is it exactly? Next slide, please. So this map shows where it is pretty clearly, and we looked at it in a historical context as well as a current one. Next. And we looked at the what. Next. 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 I was told by Evan to be very brief, and I'm working on that right now. There's some history that we want to, try to connect with. Next.
It's your school, George.
Next.
Put it on the map.
Keep going. And of course, it has a character that's very Industrial Revolution, and it has a number of water wheels, which I particularly love. So, next. And housing of different shape sizes and content. And recreational facilities as well. I usually drag this slideshow out to about 40 minutes, so you're getting it. Playgrounds, gateway. These are some symbols. There's a gateway. There's a soldier from World War I who was Mr. Vinyl, right? Yep. So I want to remind you that a couple years ago we did a Chelmsford focused on the historic village center. And that was what we looked at, and we did the art center of the old town hall as the image. Next. And these should be popping up any day now, right, Evan?
We're working on it.
Good, good. We went through a process with the committee, and we asked them to describe in words what North Chelmsford Vinyl Square was. This is one word description. The next slide, believe it or not, is going to be 2 words and 3 words. And and we tried to get a feeling of what we could come up with and do. Next, we looked at colors, we looked at symbols. Next. And then we talked about public art a little bit and about aspirations of the community as well. And this red is a deeper red. So this is the final one that was decided on by the committee. The idea was that it would connect visually in a way with what's going on in the village center, but it also would be very distinctively North Chelmsford and Vinyl Square. The bottom on this one is the water wheels that will be cut out, and the ones in the Chelmsford Center are beech leaves in recognition of that famous old beech tree that died after, 200 years or whatever that people loved. So, next. So here is one of the more or less pedestrian and slow vehicle signs showing direction. Here's another directional sign, and you can see I don't have a golden retriever, but I always wanted one. So,
Do you have a bug?
I did at one time.
Who didn't?
Me.
It's our generation.
And then on the next slide, we're getting close to the end here. Next slide. The committee worked out locations for the phase 1 implementation of it. And you can see by the family of elements at the bottom, each of them is a letter, and those letters are placed on this aerial map. Now, in most communities in the Commonwealth, the Board of Select people are the commissioners of streets and sidewalks. So therefore, it's very important that you approve this because you're the last word here. So if you like it, then we can have it implemented. So, you have any questions?
When you said phase 1, is the intent that further down the road you want to have more signs?
It's a function of need. If it's discovered later on that you need direction to something and it's left out in the first phase, so it's added to it.
Yeah, I'd like to just help out to answer the question. Joe Tierney, current chair of the committee. And thank you to Mark and Evan and the support of the community for getting to this point. As Evan had said, this is about proving the concept, and we're still tweaking the exact color in the sky next to it. It also has certain verbiage there that isn't the final view of it, but we are going to, we basically got this in an email form, and we have our next meeting is Monday, June 10th, and anybody that would like to participate is welcome to come. As always, our committee meetings are open, and we've gotten some good feedback from the residents about turn here, and we're going to do our best shot to make sure people get into the parks, whether it be Varney Playground or Ayotte Field, or then Southwell. But we're going to now, next stage is to map out the best we can what is actually needed, and then as Evan said, about a year from now, we're looking to get that stuff installed. And I don't know if anybody right now has any questions from my vantage point, what the committee went through, but it's been in pieces. We've had several meetings discussing what's proper. We also had taken a look at different things with the mills, whether we incorporate the mills, and looking at the whole Chelmsford idea. I like how they're very similar from Chelmsford and North Chelmsford, because I like the vision of a one town, one high school, one taxpayer community, but we also have different good things in Center versus North. They're similar yet different. So I like that look and feel of the whole project. But I'm here, I'm not going anywhere if you have any questions for me as well.
So what's being sent around, Joe is referring to, it's the kind of the evolution as to where the committee began and where they ended up. First page, the committee started with themes related to the mills and the water wheel, and then different iterations, emphasizing the mill building, and then emphasizing the water wheel in front of the mill building. And then they evolved or transitioned into the North Community Center and the water wheel, and then finally on the bottom, is the image that the committee has voted their preference on. So again, what we're looking for this evening is an endorsement from the Select Board on the committee's preferred option, which is on the bottom lower right of the second page. Essentially highlights the community center, and then a banding of the water wheel will be the themes, picking up the industrial past and the community center and looking forward. Other item I wanted to mention is that the Vinyl Square survey that was funded by town meeting 2 town meetings ago, that is needed to be completed before we ask Mass Highway to approve locations of any signs within their jurisdiction. And most of the square itself and many of the main roadways leading into the square are under the state jurisdiction. So unlike Center Village, where we simply rely on town DPW to locate and install, this will require some additional coordination, permits, and permissions from the state. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Just one comment. Having sat through the Center Village and then select meetings up in North Chelmsford, it was good to see the process remain the same, and in both situations it was a lot of town resident input and not really, I watched nicely as Mark and Evan, you just sat back and let the sort of the townspeople promote their thoughts and concepts and choose color and shadowing, and it was nice to see that the residents really came up with these concepts and ideas. And
exactly, and as I mentioned, I think Joe mentioned, the committee will continue to work with the community to receive input and feedback as they refine the color, the text, and the locations of these signs.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we, to endorse the concept of the signage as presented and encourage the the North Chelmsford Strategic Action Committee to continue with their efforts.
I'll second.
so Paul, just because that's all we're voting for tonight is the design, there's no money or?
No, we'll go to fall town meeting with an
For
article
funding?
to appropriate funds for the project. So, that'll be the committee's work over the next 2 months, is get that
Good.
estimate.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bid awards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item for bid award this evening. That's for the senior center roof. Public Works, the Facilities Division, put the project out to bid. There were 5 bidders. The low bidder, and was the lowest qualified bidder, after review of references and so forth, was ES Builders LLC, and the total bid price for demolition and installation of the new roof at the senior center is $103,970, and that falls within the $110,000 project budget. So I'd ask the board's confirmation of the bid award to E5 Builders LLC for the senior center roof at $103,970.
Where was this opened? Was this at the?
That was opened down at Public Works just over about a week ago, it was just following your last meeting.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the town manager's bid award for the Council on Aging roof replacement to E5 Builders LLC in the amount of $103,970.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the bid awards, again, are these advertised anywhere?
Yeah, they're advertised that would be, since over 100,000 is in the Central Register and is in the local paper and so forth.
When the opening is?
Yeah.
Could you just do me a favor and remind us when
Yeah.
we have those? Thanks.
These are all prevailing wages.
Yes, it has to be, because it's a public building. Okay, the next item I have is just a report, a real brief. The state legislature is in the midst of their budget process. At this point in time, the House has passed its version of the FY20 state budget, and the Senate just over a week ago passed its version. And now that the budget's in conference committee, and I wanted to let the board and the community know that there are 3 earmarks for Chelmsford in the various budgets. The first one is a $100,000 appropriation in the House budget submitted by Representative Golden on behalf of the town. That's for another year of the Small Business Economic Development Grant Program. So again, we will look for that to survive the process. And then on the Senate side, Senator Barrett was able to secure funding in the Senate version of the budget for 2 earmarks for Chelmsford. The first was a $50,000 appropriation for improvements at Roberts Field, and then the second one was a $40,000 appropriation for the Chelmsford Age-Friendly Initiative Program. So again, we'll look for these projects to survive the conference committee process, and we're hoping that will take place by the end of this month if they're going to adopt the state budget in time for the start of the July 1 fiscal year. We have seen in the past that sometimes the process isn't complete and they do a temporary budget, and obviously none of this would be resolved until the final state budget is approved. So I just wanted to let the board and the community know. I know there've been some, you may have seen on social media, the senior center, did a public display at the suggestion of Senator Barrett to, acknowledge and sort of draw attention to the age-friendly initiative and so forth. And I know the Roberts Field Committee has been reaching out as well. So just wanted to let the board and the community know that that our legislative delegation is seeking to secure funds for Chelmsford. I think there was a story in the Lowell Sun the other day about Senator Kennedy's efforts on behalf of the city of Lowell, and obviously we weren't, forgotten or missing that opportunity as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appointments?
Yeah, it's June, which is time for annual appointments. So you have an extensive list of appointments, and so my suggestion would be to seek the appointments for the town manager. We'd ask the board to approve the list as submitted. What these are reappointments. We reached out to all members whose terms were expiring, and those who sought to be reappointed are on the list. And similarly, Christina did that for the Selectmen's, most notably, Ag Commission, Senate Village, and Military Community Covenant and Personnel Board. What will happen is those that are declined or aren't responsive will then go to the vacancy list that will appear at future meetings. So I'd ask the board's confirmation for the annual appointments as presented.
So I make a motion that we approve the town managers and the Board of Selectmen reappointments as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then the one which is an appointment is for the Board of Registrars. This is for Curtis Barton. You may recall he filled an unexpired term, which was very brief. And now, again, Christina.
But it was important. It was over an election.
Yeah, there was an election, but it was a very brief term. And because that was the unaffiliated seat, Christina did reach out to both the Republican and Democratic Town Committee. The only nomination and response that she read back came from the Republican Town Committee to request that Curtis Barton be appointed to this position, and that would be for a 3-year term in this case in its entirety.
So I'll make a motion that we reappoint Curtis Barton to the Board of Registrars for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So what happens with the Democratic committee? Did they miss the deadline?
No, they
or-
still have a seat on the committee.
Oh, okay.
There's Democratic, Republican, then there's unaffiliated, which could be either one.
But they haven't,
or no
they
party,
haven't filled
right.
the seat.
No, they have.
They could have submitted a name,
Could
but
have
they
submitted the
didn't.
name for this unaffiliated seat.
And then we would have had a
Get a
vote.
response.
They have one on there now, it's,
Right. Tom Fall.
Tom Fall.
Tom Fall. So Tom remains on the registrars.
but they didn't recommend anybody for
Right,
this.
exactly.
How much contact does the town generally have with the 2 major party committees?
Excuse me.
I mean, obviously, the clerk's office has significant, because the registrars are at all elections, but
Sure.
Michael goes and visits them every town meeting at the Republican Town Committee to review town meeting warrant items and issues. And then occasionally they'll appear before the board if there's items of interest.
We are routinely invited over the years, the previous managers as well, to come to their meeting usually a month before each of our annual town meetings, spring and fall, so they'd like to hear from the town. I can't recall in recent time when the Democratic Town Committee has extended the same invite to the manager's office, so it's just been the Republicans. But other than that, you see them in the parade, and they have representation in the registrar's office. So that's about the only affiliation the town has with either of them.
Thanks.
13 is, Emily, you want to explain what we're doing here? I'm not sure. I didn't realize that got on there.
Here, can I see? I left my thing in the car, so I had notes. Oh, I didn't realize that had gotten, I guess I didn't register. So several communities, 30-something communities have applied for a redesign of the state flag. We have what's called an icon on a bedsheet style flag, and people feel that it is outdated and not representative of Massachusetts as it is now. So there are 30 communities looking to redesign the flag. And so I had sent that over to Ken, and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And didn't know whether or not we wanted to be part of that, whether we wanted to sign on, what the board thought.
Have they asked us to? Have they asked for input from us on this? Anybody that's?
No, it's a newspaper article that I came across.
Oh, well, the Senate bill is included here too, so I thought maybe somebody had sent you
Nobody
the
has
Senate
reached
bill.
out, but
Oh,
do we want input?
Yeah, so Emily had called me on this, and I didn't really know.
Mike Barrett signed on to the bill.
oh, I noticed that, yeah.
And I didn't know what was going on, so I read about it. My feeling is, if the state comes back and redesigns it, they redesign it, let them.
Yeah.
I just feel like right now in the town, we got a bunch of other stuff we're trying to focus on, and I'm not against the redesign, but I don't know. I guess I'm wondering what it would entail, what we're being asked to do.
I don't know. It was one of those things I looked at and I was like, oh, I wonder if we should look into this. And so
I would think if they probably will have hearings across the Commonwealth if they decide to go forward with this, at which time members of this board could go and give their opinions. I agree with Ken. I don't know it's anything that this board wants to really get that deeply involved in.
Still trying to work on goals for the town manager, so.
Well, and it says it was filed on January 17th, and the appointment of commissioners will occur within 60 days, so it's probably already happened.
No, they haven't.
Well, they haven't
yet.
even acted on it
It would
yet.
be if they acted upon this resolve by the petitioners. I think that
But
people are trying to
I
rally
think
support
we have
for the
hotter things
effort.
to
yeah.
focus on.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, I didn't know that was going on. I didn't even know what the motto read above it, so that was
I didn't
very
either.
educational. All right, so that brings us to Board of Selectmen and Town Manager's goals. So, just to touch on this, when we left the last meeting, I had scrolled down some more notes on some of the outstanding items, and I know, Pat, you hate me handing stuff out the night of the
You're
meeting.
right, I do.
So what I'm gonna recommend is I'm gonna give it to everybody tonight, and there were some comments made by everybody else asking about one or two little things, so I put them all in here. I broke it out by town manager, board of selectmen, whose goals are whose. And you can take this home and bring it back, or send me each comment individually.
I think at this point, you can no longer do that.
Oh, because we're handing it out?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be my,
So my next question, and so what I did is I took those 10 goals, and then I put them onto a evaluation sheet. And I brought a copy of that for everybody to look at, and you can take that home. And then, I don't know, Paul, maybe the next answer is a work section. I don't know how else to do this. A lot went into this, and it didn't want to violate any laws, so I pretty much did it, and kind of was pulling my hair out trying to figure out when someone came up with one of the goals, whether I was hitting the goal on the head as far as what they wanted accomplished or not. I was just trying to concretize, and that is a word, a definition of the goal so that we knew exactly what you were working towards. And I'm not looking for comment tonight. You can take it with you, but I just don't know how then to pull this all back into one document again.
I think any discussion from this point on has to happen in some sort of work session. That would be my take on it.
Well, I don't know that we can't discuss it during a regular meeting. I mean, I guess
We
I
can,
don't
but-
see why it would have to be a so-called work session.
I don't see
Not
why
having-
either. As
Not
long as,
having looked at it.
right. But I also don't want it to end up taking 3 hours on a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. We're getting out of here at 11:30.
And that's the purpose
Well,
of the work
we
session.
could,
is to-
we could put it at the end of a meeting, and then if we, and have a hard
Could we put it
stop.
higher on the agenda than the end?
Yeah,
I
'cause
think it's more important
To just get this
to talk
done
about it
and
when
not
we're
be
fresh.
tired as we're going through it.
And that's the other reason for the work session is that it lets this as an important thing have that dedicated time without worrying about, whether or not we've got several speakers or worrying about whether we've got presentations and just trying to make everything work around it, so.
Well, when would you propose such work session?
Go to your calendar. Or what are your thoughts, Paul?
My suggestion would be the July 8th meeting, which is the Monday after the 4th, because I don't think you're going to have anything else on that agenda that night, because I don't think anybody's going to be coming in before you for actions.
And our next meeting is quite busy, so we shouldn't do it at our next
Yeah,
meeting.
I'm thinking shoot for July 8th, but,
Okay.
yeah, and then certainly we'll know by our next meeting if it's a heavy on July 8th, but other than that, I don't.
If it's not, we could maybe come in at 6 and work
Yeah,
on
because
this
I don't think
at
that
the
there's,
meeting.
like I said, I just don't see that being an active item, because it's going to be a huge vacation week for general population, and because that Thursday holiday, people are just taking off for 10 days and
That's
so.
a good idea.
Is that the week, part of the 2 weeks you're away,
So
Mr.
it's 2
Chairman?
meetings out?
Oh, no, I don't think so for me.
No, that's one that
No,
we
we
had
scheduled it
rescheduled.
around Ken's vacation this year. Make sure he can make it.
Okay, and then what are the rules, Paul, as far as, now that this is laid out to everybody, I can't get feedback individually from you. That has to be done in a work session, or that has to be done publicly? Like, if I wanted to sit with you and just make sure.
You can sit with me, I'm not a
Okay.
board. I mean,
So
there's
I
no
could-
open meeting law
I could at
violation,
least
you and I sit
hone
down.
your end of this with
Sure,
you.
yeah.
And then give this to everybody in
Yes.
advance, and then save some time in the work session of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
I think also you can listen to all of us, but what you can't say is, oh, did you hear what George said about that?
Right.
Oh, well, George said this and then
Well,
Virginia
I
said
guess
that,
I-
because that's the chain
If
meeting.
it's one way.
It's one way.
I guess I would dispute that, because this is really a consolidation of everything we've all said. So I think, well, I guess, you're kind of getting on
Well,
the very edge.
But basically, so you're right, I took everything everybody said, and it was sort of like the dream list, right? As we were just throwing out one more idea, that's how it got to 10 so quickly. And then I walked away with notes and wrote it down. I just want to make sure I'm right. So I guess what I'm saying is, if any of these goals are misrepresented or incorrect, can you send me an email that I then correct it to whoever's intention it was? Like, where we got to the brew pub, the tap
Yeah,
room.
well, there's an issue with that right there, but I'll talk
Right.
about
So
that
just to
later.
make sure that the intent is stated correctly, and
Correct.
then we'll deliberate on the July meeting.
Yes, because I read notes after the fact, and it wasn't right after the fact, it was days after, and I was like, okay, what did they really want there? What was the intent on this one? And I was trying to get it into words. And so I just want to make sure we're all at the same starting point when we sit down. Because if all the goals are agreed or laid out correctly at that first meeting, then all we have to talk about is what the actions and outcomes we're looking for are. Does that make sense? Comments, Paul?
No, I had to review the materials.
Yeah, right.
Good enough. All right. So we'll move along. Any other comments? Any other questions? That brings us to meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve but not release the executive session meeting minutes for May 20th, 2019.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'll abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
No, you don't need a roll call.
Oh. Executive.
Okay,
You don't.
sorry.
That's just if we're going into executive session or if we're in executive session.
401, right? 4-4,
Yeah.
0.
George has a question.
You all set?
Yeah, I was raising my hand.
Oh, I thought he had a question. Sorry.
Okay. Selectmen liaison reports. Virginia.
The only thing I have is just an FYI for folks that Representative Golden has invited town meeting representatives from precincts 2, 3, and 6 to an open meeting with him on Thursday. So if you're in those precincts and you have anything that you want raised, I would encourage you to reach out to one of your precinct reps.
Okay, I have a couple of things. Last Saturday, I attended the Neshoba Tech graduation. Very nicely done, and it was good to see so many. I think there was close to 180, between 170 and 180 graduates at Neshoba Tech this year. Big part of whom came from the town of Chelmsford. It was a good event, so congratulations to all those students. Some of them it was listed where they were going, where they were continuing their education or their careers. At least 3 are going to service academies and other very, there's a lot of colleges that they'll be attending out in the front of the school. I don't know if you've been by there lately, but they have like placards for all the different schools that the different students will be attending. So again, congratulations to the graduates. Next Friday on June 14th, which is Flag Day, the Elks will be having a Flag Day ceremony at 7 p.m. at their facility on Littleton Road. Everybody is invited. Again, Flag Day, June 14th. And I don't know if anybody else was going to mention it, but about our traffic forum next Wednesday, June 12th is the date, right? At 7 p.m. at the Senior Center. We'll be listening to residents, business owners, visitors, whoever wants to come and talk about issues that they have with traffic anywhere in the town. Thank you.
George?
I just like to thank the North Chelmsford Revitalization Committee and Joe, Tanny, and Donna Selliott, and for the great job they did after the parade with the, serving the ice cream and the cake and everything. And I think, the parade was nice, and they've done a great job with that, with the town hall over there, community center now. I also like to remind people that on the Thursday of this week is the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy, D-Day, which is probably the greatest battle in the history of the country. So a lot of people, there aren't many left, but those that are around, it'd be nice to see, if you know somebody, to say thank you to them. That's all. That's it.
No, if you're wondering at all about the school committee budget, the school department budget, the school committee's last meeting went over it in detail, and it's always interesting, I think, to hear the budgets and to hear them gone over, to understand the weight that each item is put under, and the consideration that goes into creating the budgets. And I think it's worth at least taking a look at every now and then, just to really understand the process and to understand that this is not something done quickly, and it's not something taken lightly. It's got serious thought and consideration behind it. And if you're curious to see where money's going, it's a good one to watch. So,
Thanks. So just the updates that I have. Lowell Sun's going to be doing an article on our large font menus, which is great.
Will it be in large font?
I don't think it will be, actually. But yeah, it's good. We're finally getting some buy-in on it, and we've dropped off a few at some of the other restaurants that are considering it. And then we had our second master plan meeting, and George Zaharoulis was elected as chairman, and Don Van Dyne was elected as vice chair. NEMCOG came and gave us sort of an overview and a scope of what they were willing to do in the master plan. So we're starting to formulate where we're going with that. And then the traffic listening day was on my list of things to talk about. And just to be clear, and I'm going to, the reason why I've sort of pushed the listening day for the traffic is I realized that around town, as I was asking people what they thought about traffic, the answers we're getting were really varied. Some people would say, well, there's congestion. Some people would say speed. Others would say noise, smells, no left-hand turn lanes. So everybody was giving a different answer. So I think when I was talking with Mike McCall about this, and he and I were just talking about traffic congestion, and we sort of were focusing on what we've thought the issues were and not really what other people were perceiving the issues. So I think in an effort to get a baseline of what's the issues across town, it's going to be good just to have a session where people can come in and give us a list of what the issues are, and then we can compile that list and sort of put together a strategy, or the town the town hall can put together a strategy on dealing with those if there is the solution, and if not, coming back to us with what the laws and why not and so forth. And that way, we're sort of on the same page and not using our own sort of boxed-in thoughts of what traffic issues are in the town. So that's how that's sort of evolved. Other than that, there's no press here.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.